Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 71st part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 71, Dreadnought. The door to the mansion burst open, revealing nothing but darkness. The members of the Creature Rejection clan all turned towards the door and took on combat stances. A few picked up weapons due to their quirks not having any combat capability, or were just weak. But all were ready to face whatever had kicked down the door. A red energy blade suddenly appeared in the darkness, providing some light and revealing a figure wearing dark purple and red armor. "There is one amongst you who I am after," the armored figure stated as he marched into the room, his voice deep and menacing. "Hand him to me, and I will let you live," he said as he raised his blade. A blade that was coming out of his right stump. "I do not know who you speak of, but we will not hand over one of our own," one of the CRC members said. "It matters not who we are, we will not give up on one of our own," another CRC member said. "Leave now, before we take matters into dash." "Enough of this charade," the armored figure said. All but one of the CRC suddenly collapsed, their necks snapped and broken. The survivor screamed in pain, clutching his head and falling to his knees. The armored figure started to walk towards him. "For a puppet master, you sure are susceptible to your puppet's deaths." "Fuck you, false servant," the other man growled, glaring at him with hate-filled eyes. "False servant," the armored figure said mockingly as he steadily approached them. "I'm afraid it is you who are the false servant, heretic." "I am no heretic," the man growled before he slowly got to his feet. "I am a true servant of Mother. A follower of the true path she laid before us." "True path," the armored figure scoffed. "You call disobeying Mother, and using powers she herself tells us not to use, her true path. You are as delusional as your friends were. And now, you will join them," he said as he raised his blade, ready to strike the heretic down. The heretic quickly got out what looked like a knife handle. A moment later a short blue energy blade shot out of it, just in time to deflect the energy sword. "A blue blade, huh?" the armored figure scoffed. "You think using such a color would make people believe you are on the side of good," he said before he swung his sword at him, forcing the heretic to jump back out of the way. "You aren't what the world calls a Jedi, heretic." The heretic charged him, swinging his knife at him with reckless abandon. He clearly had received some training, but it wasn't enough. The armored figure deflected each swing with methodical ease. His opponent, a young man who had only received the bare minimum amount of training, up against a master of more than just the sword. It was less a fight, and more a desperate man's attempt to hold off the inevitable, for he was not going to survive this. The heretic ducked under a swing and posed to stab the armored man in his side. "Enough!" the armored man stated before he held his good hand in front of the heretic's blade, holding it in place with his mind. "I am a dreadnought in service to Mother. I am an instrument of her will. You are not," he said before he stabbed the heretic straight through the chest. The other man only had a second to realize he had been stabbed before his body exploded into a mess of blood and gore, none of which splattered onto his killer. The dreadnought's energy blade disengaged, allowing his mechanical hand to unfurl out of the stump and flex. He looked down at the bloody remains of his target. How young was he? 16? 17? 20? It was difficult to tell. It angered him that such young individuals could be so easily swayed to follow such a dark and immoral path. For what? The promise of power? Power gained from the devouring of souls is not power. "Face Mother's judgment, heretic," he said as he waved a hand over the heretic's remains, erasing them for existence and removing any trace of the body. "8 down, 1 to G-," he said before he was unceremoniously kicked in the head and sent flying into a wall. Debris collapsed on top of him. Mirko smirked as she landed on her feet. She didn't know who this guy was, but he was going away for a long time for this. Even if he did just wipe out the entire CRC. She wasn't really a fan of them, for obvious reasons, but they were still human. And killing them, even if they deserved it, was still something this guy was going to be punished for. Murder was still murder, after all, no matter who was on the receiving end. She was no fool, she knew full well that that blow would have at best disorientated him, not knocked him out. She could tell from that kick alone that this guy was strong and resilient. She would have to be careful when dealing with him. She stopped when she heard laughter. The man she just kicked was laughing? Pain, the dreadnought chuckled. Sometimes I forget I can still feel it. Mirko took on a fighting stance. The debris covering the dreadnought floated upwards and away from him. The armored figure was then lifted back onto his feet like some invisible force was lifting him up. Mirko took a step back in shock. How was this guy able to stand so effortlessly? That kick should have seriously disorientated him. Yet he was acting as if it was nothing. Her rabid survival instincts flared up, telling her to run. This man, whatever he was dangerous, powerful, a seasoned hunter more than capable of dealing with her. She knew the guy only looked like Darth Vader, but fucking hell did it feel like she was dealing with the real fucking thing. The dreadnought stared at her from behind his mask, a terrifying vestige of death. This man had killed everyone in this room, and could clearly kill her as well. It took every bit of her willpower to not turn and run. Now usually I erase the memories of those who even kind of look at me weird, but your legs make my brain go, awoga. Would you like to F- was about as far as the guy got before he was kicked into another wall. Mirko groaned. Oh, so you're one of those guys. She knew she had quite the dedicated fan base, she had nice, strong legs after all. Legs that a lot of people wanted to have their heads crushed by, but having villains remark on them just pissed her off. I am not going to have sex with you, you freak. Fight. I was about to say fight, the figure said, getting up the same way as before. Never ask a woman for sex during a first meeting. That never ends well. Case in point, you kicked me in the face. Could have been worse, you could have threatened to eat my face. Mirko gave him an odd look. Eat your face. What kind of women are you courting? Bug women, the villain replied. Carnivorous bug women. Mirko blinked. Well, you clearly like to live dangerously, she said, sounding slightly confused. She had met some odd people in her time, but never had she met someone who could switch from fucking terrifying to hello baby so quickly. Who the fuck was this guy? Comes with the territory, the dreadnought replied. Mirko smirked. Tough too. Those kicks should have left you disorientated. I'll take more than that to disorient me, the dreadnought said as he took on a combat stance, but didn't draw his blade. Now then, Rumi Yusako Usajiyama. Let's see just how much you can hurt me. Mirko gasped. How the fuck did he know her middle name? She's never told that to anyone, not even to her friends. Only her parents, a few doctors and teachers knew that. She was going to beat the answer out of him. So, let me get this straight, Barrow-sai dash. No, Belterus, that's her name. Barrows was just a nickname. Dreadnoughts are basically D&D paladins hand-picked by your god, who is real by the way, to carry out her will. Which mostly includes hunting down these heretics. Kiruka nodded. Basically correct. There's a bit more to it, as dreadnoughts do have other duties, but you've got the general idea. Belterus nodded. Her friend and the pro-hero/hybrid Claire had just finished explaining what a dreadnought was. A hand-picked few, chosen by their mother, a powerful godlike being who was responsible for making the entire Semitic species, over billions of years by the way, not 7 days. Evolution isn't something you can rush, to carry out her will. Because she didn't want people causing atrocities in her name. As well as to kill anyone who uses abilities she told them not to, such as eating each other's souls. If only the Christian God had been the same. His thou shalt not kill command was very much ignored by almost everyone over the centuries. Not counting all the other fucked up shit the church has done in God's name. The things those guys tried to do when quirks first appeared were fucking messed up. Admittedly, it could be easy to see quirks as the work of the devil, and this may come as hypocritical coming from her, but you can't just send out murder squads to kill anyone even so much as suspected as having a quirk and claim you are doing it in God's name. Good thing the train was stopped before it could officially start. Sadly, it didn't stop people from independently doing it without the church's approval. Right, so now that I have a better idea of what a dreadnought is, and that Atsuo was one, Belterus said. The question now is, how was Argonaut able to kill him, and why would he want him dead? Because all I remember is an explosion. The why we're not so sure about, Karuka replied. Claire believes it's somewhere along the lines of, because he could, but we're still not sure about how he found out about him. As for how he succeeded, well, Atsuo was old, very old. It's almost unheard of for a dreadnought to retire, most die in the line of duty. And those that do tend to be very weak, their powers weaken considerably from their long years of fighting heretics. Atsuo was no different. His mind and soul were severely damaged from his time as a dreadnought. He probably wasn't able to read Argonaut's mind and know that he was a threat. He also chose a time when the summer camp wasn't active. When it was just you two at the house. If another telepath was there, then he would have been stopped. Sadly, it was just you two. So, no one was there to see it coming. Belterus frowned and lowered her head. So that was it, that was how he was able to kill someone that powerful. Atsuo was at his weakest, and there was no one else there to sense the threat. Her eyes suddenly shot open. Wait, does that mean that Argonaut knows about aliens? Claire shook her head. He doesn't. I've encountered him several times and he doesn't know that aliens exist. He's actually a skeptic, he outright doesn't believe aliens exist. Which is rather ironic since he's been running around with an alien for the past few years. Wait, that green-skinned chick with the swam quirk, that was an alien? Belterus asked, sounding surprised. Karuka nodded. The galaxy's resident green-skinned Amazonian space babes. The Cardrians. And no, that was no quirk. Cardrians are an insectoid race made up of billions of tiny insects. They are also carnivorous and tend to eat people. And yes, that also means that Avalon was working with an alien. She's the reason why Paxton had such highly advanced robots. Ah, yes, another reason to not be able to sleep at night, because Paxton being helped by a goddamn genuine alien was the last fucking thing she needed to know today. She was so glad that the man was dead. Meanwhile, on board the Ark, Paxton was currently looking down at the unconscious form of the hacker Hilala and Co. had brought back with them. The same hacker who had fainted after Paxton had introduced himself. Okay, that was not the reaction I was expecting out of him, Paxton remarked. Well, you have been declared dead for 11 years, Hilala said. Maybe you should have been a bit more careful with your introduction. Yeah, maybe you're right, Paxton said as Tycho walked up behind him. Paxton, Tycho said. Repairs to my quirk emulator have been completed. Paxton smirked. Excellent. Now we can put it to use. Shame I can't use you for my original plan. Oh well, I'm sure something should pop up. What was that plan anyway? Tesla asked. Oh, when I found out that Izumi had Durandal, I initially wasn't going to do anything about it, Paxton said. But then I saw her performance during the entrance exam and knew that she was going to get into the hero course. So I thought I could replace Durandal with Tycho and have a spy inside the hero course. Unfortunately, we found out during the USJ that she had a quirk, meaning she's working for All for 1 inch. He is the only one capable of giving someone a quirk after all, Tycho added. So yeah, I can't risk All for 1 knowing that I'm back, not till I'm ready for the big reveal, Paxton continued. Ah yes, the big reveal, Hilala said. When is that taking place again? It'll be soon, Paxton said. Just need to get a few things ready first, and wait for the opportune moment, he said with a smile before he looked down at the unconscious hacker. And can someone take him to the medical bay? Sure thing boss, Tesla said. Come on Twice, let's get this guy to medical. On it. Do it yourself. Twice said before he helped Tesla carry the unconscious hacker. Paxton, a word please, Hilala said as the two men carried the hacker away. She then looked at Tycho. In private. Of course, I'll take my leave, Tycho said before he turned and left the room. So, what's this about then? Paxton asked. It's about Island, Hilala said. Specifically, Melissa Vero's shield. Vero, Paxton said, his camera-like eyes shifting. Didn't you say that Vero was the name of the second most powerful swarm host in the Cardrian Vestral? We did, Hilala said. Melissa's shield is a member of that host. What? Paxton gasped, a look of disbelief on his face. When the fuck did a member of the Vero swarm host get here? We're on the other side of the galaxy. We don't know, Hilala replied. It must have happened sometime around the time Melissa was revived. Paxton nodded. Well, at least we now know what the miracle David came up with to revive her was. This is going to complicate things. With her on the side of the heroes, she can easily develop equipment to counter us. At least she's still stuck as a student. But her father is on the Island Science Council, Hilala said. She can easily have her father work on anything she comes up with. He has the resources and authority to do that. We might have to attack Island this time to get them out of the way. Paxton cursed, this wasn't looking good. He didn't attack Island last time, and for good reason. Alright, I'm leaving you in charge of dealing with her. Find a way to get her out of the picture without killing her. I do not want the Swarm Queen of Thalurus coming after my head for the murder of a member of her swarm. Hilala nodded. Do not worry, Paxton. We'll take care of her, she said with a smirk. It's been a while since she last had to fight a member of her own race. Should be fun. Meanwhile, back at Kiruka's apartment. Its occupants still blissfully unaware of Paxton's return. Their conversation continued. Well, thank you for giving me another reason to not be able to sleep at night, Belterus said. Yeah, sorry about that, but this planet has seen a lot of alien activity on it, Claire said. She's also probably the reason why this planet saw a massive technological leap. Okay, stop. Belterus said, feeling a migraine come on. Enough, please. My brain can't take any more of this. I do not need to know that we had aliens help us colonize the moon. Let's go back to less brain-melting subjects, like, say, killing the last heretic who took over Humorize? Kiruka shook her head. Oh no, we are not fighting him, not without some serious backup. You couldn't even pay me to go near him. Why? Belterus asked, looking confused. Didn't you say that you killed 2 heretics recently? That I did. But that's because they weren't fucking soul-eating monsters, Kiruka explained. The others were all teenagers, young adults who were seduced by the promise of power. Anyone skilled enough can kill them. They are not even worth talking about due to just how easy they are to deal with. The leader, on the other hand, is old, and is by far stronger than the others. The average lifespan for a Semitic is about 200 years, Claire added. Us hybrids will probably live to about 120. That guy, the leader of the usurpers, is well over 500. And he has devoured thousands of souls during his life, each one making him stronger. Only a dreadnought is strong enough to face him now. If either of us go against him, even with that toy of hers, he'd just snap us in half like a twig. Belterus frowned. Well, there goes that plan. You're scared of them, aren't you? We are, for good reason, Kiruka replied. You won't feel your soul get consumed by a heretic. For you, it'll be over in an instant. For us, however, due to our psychic abilities being so closely linked to our souls, it'll take longer, and we'll feel every moment of it. It's a painful, agonizing experience that I do not want to be subjected to. Belterus frowned and nodded. From what she's learned about these guys, she can understand why her friend would be scared of them. Something that can devour your soul is scary enough, but for someone who can feel their soul getting consumed, it must be 10 times more terrifying. So, all I can do is wait for the dreadnoughts to kill him then. Kiruka noted. Sadly, yes. It'll be suicidal for anyone else to go up against him. He's just too powerful. Belterus sighed. Well, there went her idea of personal revenge. At least the lives those heretics ruined will get revenge, even if she's not the one carrying it out. Claire looked up at the clock on the wall. Well, it's getting late, and I should be leaving now, she said as she stood up. I can't be seen casually talking with a bunch of villains now, can I? That'll blow my cover. Right, yeah, forgot about that, Belteris said. She was still very much still wanted for the whole Hummerize thing, and was currently on the run after the aircraft she was in somehow blew up. How did that even happen anyway? Well, I'll catch up to you later, Kiroka said. Sorry about messing up your plans, Belteris said. It's alright, Claire said with a small smile. There's always another time. See you two around. Also, a word of warning. The next time we meet, Belteris, I will have to take you in. Yeah, I kind of expected that, Belteris said with a sigh. Hey, don't worry about it, Kiroka said. I'll be by your side. She'll have to arrest both of us. And that's something I'm more than willing to do, Claire said with a smirk before she turned and left. See you two around. Kiroka waited for Claire to leave before she turned back towards Belteris. So, how are you handling things? She asked, a worried look on her face. Can't be easy learning about all these things. It's alright, Belteris said. Despite how out there all this stuff is, I seem to find it easy to believe. Well, you were told all of this before, Kiroka said. Being told this again is probably helping you to remember. I'm glad that you're back and remembering your past. It's been difficult not having you around to talk to. I've not been treated well due to my strong quirk. Even keeping my other abilities a secret didn't help, she said, curling up on herself. It's so confusing sometimes. Some people get treated so well due to how strong their quirks are, but others are ostracized for theirs. It just doesn't make sense. There were people with far stronger quirks than mine, yet they were treated so nicely. I had the same things as they did, a strong quirk with great control over it, and yet, everyone was scared of it. Sometimes I wish I was born a pure Semitic. That's people for you, Belteris said, comforting her friend, even though she only really met her the other day and was still struggling to remember their time together. Power can attract and scare people. It's just the way it is. Some powers people like, but others scare people. You were probably surrounded by people who found the idea of controlling your air creepy. Some quirks are just like that. Just ignore them. There are people who care about you. After all, we are friends, right? Kiroka smiled. Thank you. I miss talking to you. Don't mention it, Belteris said. I'm just glad I have a friend to talk to. My life has been shit these past few months. I know how that feels, Kiroka said before she looked at the clock. We should probably hit the sack. It's getting late, I'm tired, and it's been a busy day. Sun's going to come up in a few hours anyway. We can talk more in the morning. Maybe have that missing hand of yours sorted out. Belteris nodded as Kiroka got up. I'll stay up for a bit. There's a lot I still have to process. All right, Kiroka said. I'll see you in the morning. Belteris made herself comfortable on the sofa as Kiroka went off to bed. There was a lot going through her head right now, mostly trying to process what she had been told, as well as the deep feeling of regret she had. She had a friend, a close friend too. And she had abandoned her, for what, some backwards plan to kill the man who killed her dad by joining a cult that wanted to wipe out quirks. She should have tried to recover her past and find those who knew who she was. Instead, she abandoned those she knew for Hummerize. What a great friend she was. At least she's finally starting to remember. Just only a few years too late. She settled down and closed her eyes. After all she has done, after all that has happened to her, did she really deserve to just get away with her crimes? Mirko collapsed onto the ground unconscious. She had given it her all to fight the man she assumed was a villain. But her all was not enough. The dreadnought she had been fighting loomed over her. His armor was undamaged, and his body wasn't exhausted from the fight. He waved a hand over Mirko's unconscious form and removed the memory of the fight and her seeing him killing the heretic from her mind. He could not risk her remembering either incident. He did not need the heroes getting in the way. He'll admit, her kicks hit much harder than he expected them to. Those kicks hurt a lot. But that was a good thing since he liked the pain. Pain reminded him that he was still alive. Once he was sure that she wouldn't remember anything, he picked her up in a bridal carry and carried her out of the building. He couldn't leave her here, surrounded by all these dead people. Someone might get the wrong idea, especially when she doesn't remember what happened. As I was saying, 8 down, 1 to go. My lord, we have a problem, the voice of an Imperial Navy officer said, speaking to him telepathically. The heretic Zaraba. We've lost him. The dreadnought's mechanical hand clenched. What do you mean, you've lost him? His psychic signature is no longer being picked up, the officer explained. A scout team is en route to his last known location, but they're half an hour away. Where is the nearest junk ship? He asked, already knowing that there was a ship in the country. Poland, sir, the officer replied instantly. Several statues around him shifted slightly. Why is the nearest jump ship in Poland? Where's the one posted in Japan? Recalled for maintenance, the officer replied. And the one in Poland was taken by the prefect so he could play golf. A nearby statue suddenly shot towards the wall and smashed into dust. I will be having a word with him on the proper use of military equipment, he growled. Get that ship over here. Losing track of Zaraba means that he's switched to a human body. He only has hours to live, less if he uses his powers. We have to stop him from switching to a compatible body. Are there any others of our kind, or any hybrids close to his last known location? I'll check, sir, the officer replied. There was a long pause before the officer spoke again. Looks like there's a royal in the Endo forest, but there are no hybrids nearby. The dreadnought cursed internally. That was not good. Order the recon team to make their way to the Endo forest. Prioritize the royal's protection, but try to keep as many people alive as possible. The last thing we need is a heretic to butcher a bunch of students. Yes, my lord, it shall be done, the officer said. As mother commands, so shall it be. As mother commands, so shall it be, the dreadnought said as he left the building and looked up at the sky. The sun just peeking out over the horizon. With its rise came the dawn of a new day. A day that, for most, would be as normal as any other day. But, for the 80 students currently residing at the Wild Pussycats Agency, the nice warm day would quickly descend into one of the worst days of their lives. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 72. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.